Hello there. My name is Fabian, and I am from the National Museum of Singapore. So hope everyone is coping well, staying at home and doing our part to stop the spread of COVID-19. So today we have a lighter side of history program for all of you that is done from our homes. For those out there who are watching this for the first time and have never heard of a lighter side of history, so as the title implies, the series celebrates Singapore's multicultural heritage by having talks from heritage enthusiasts, collectors, and practitioners. So for today's program, we will be having a discussion about Ramadan, which most people know as the fasting month for our Muslim friends. Importantly, living in Singapore, we can also see the similarities that Ramadan and Hari Raya Puasa have with the other religions and cultures in Singapore. So to help us with the discussion, we have two gentlemen. Okay, so we have Ustaz today. We have Ustaz Fiza Zainal. For those who are unfamiliar with the word Ustaz, it means religious teacher. Fiza is presently one of the leading young Ustaz in Singapore. He's currently the Executive Director of non-profit social organization Badan Agama and Pelajaran Radin Mas, or BAPA, and he oversees the daily operations and manages the religious programs in the organization. Our other guest is Mr. Frank Fu, who is the Secretary of the Qing History Society of Singapore. He has a keen interest in the customs and symbolism of the major festivals in multicultural Singapore. His passion for Singapore's traditional heritage motivated him to write and illustrate a series of light-hearted books about festivals in Singapore called Let's Celebrate. All right, so right now we are just going to start with the first question for today. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so the first question that we are going to delve deeper today is what is Ramadan and the significance of Ramadan to the community. So before we begin the discussion, I will be sharing some artifacts from the museum's collection that are related to Islam, Ramadan, and Hari Raya Puasa. So over here, we have two artifacts from our collection that I would say symbolizes Islam. All right. So if you can see on your left, okay, this is one of 8 stamps issued as a set by Singapore Post on 19th of April 2006. The stamps reflect Singapore's rich and vibrant multicultural heritage through the main festivals celebrated throughout the year. So this first local stamp features, as you can see in the center, the crescent moon and star using very colorful elements. Okay, so this is something that was used. People now still continue to use stamps, okay, to mail letters and greeting cards to each other during festivals. And the other artifact that I would like to share on the right, we have a postcard, okay, of the Sultan Mosque. Okay, so the mosque is a national monument in Singapore, and this mosque is actually the second version. Okay, so the first Sultan Mosque was built between 1824 and 1826. This current mosque that we see till today was finished in 1928. But I would like to draw your attention, okay, if you look at the postcard, to the iconic dome, and right at the top, okay, you can also see a crescent moon and star as well. Okay, so now we are going to actually move to the first question. Okay, so Ustaz, Fiza, so perhaps maybe you can share with us, right, what is the significance of the crescent moon and star in Islam?
All right, thank you, Fabian, and nice to meet you, Mr. Frank Fu. Every single religion, or I would say any community, race, or country, will always look at having a symbol to depict or to show, a very simple example or a symbol technically of what their religion or their country looks like. Like Singapore have their own flag, Malaysia have their own flag, and for Islam, technically, more often than not, the symbol for Islam is shown to have the crescent moon and the star. And sometimes if you would like to depict the month of Ramadan, they will always show it on a desert with camels, and something like that, like on a starry night. That shows an example that without even saying anything, by looking at that particular symbol, they will then know that, oh, this is the symbol of Islam, or this is the symbol of the month of Ramadan. And what's most unique is actually, if we go back to the initial history of Islam, there were never any symbols to actually depict how Islam is supposed to look like, or whether the crescent moon and the star is supposed to be something which is Islamic, but rather it's more of a culture. And I'd like to draw your attention to, if you could, and if you will, if you just roughly just Google out the maps, the flags of the Arab or Middle Eastern countries, all right, you will notice that most of them, if not entirely, not all of them have that, but most of them, like Algeria, Turkey, they will have a crescent moon and they will have a star. The crescent moon and the star, the meaning behind it doesn't go far away from our own version, any Singapore's version of our own 5 stars and the moon. The moon shows progress because it's getting bigger, right? That's number one. If politically you look at that, a moon will always say that it's a progressing nation, it's a progressing state of things. So it will be at 1/3 or crescent, and then it will move to a full moon eventually. So it shows progress. It shows the chart of movement, that there's some kind of activity. But for Islam, technically, the moon is something which is symbolic, in the sense that our calendar really looks upon the movement of the moon, and it's based on the moon itself technically, and it's very important to depict our takwim, or the calendar. So it shows progress and movement, while the star symbolizes the importance of knowledge, the importance of direction, and so on and so forth. Because as you know, in the olden days, how people actually plot their movement, all right, is to look at the stars. So a star, a single bright star, actually shows the direction of things, some kind of a compass. So technically, when you gather both the moon, the crescent moon, and the star, it is supposed to show that it is a progressing state of things, or a particular state of Islam, which is progressing, and knowledge is important, direction is important, and so on and so forth. But technically, in the times of the Prophet, when Islam was initiated, um, there wasn't any logos whatsoever. There wasn't any logos whatsoever. It only came, right way beyond after the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or peace be upon him, actually passed away. It was more, I would say, it was more political than ever. It was actually, amongst the history, it was said that it was actually founded by the Ottoman Empire, which was based in Turkey. And that explains, why even the Turkish flag has their own crescent and, the star. So technically, while people might always depict, or more often than not, the entire world, even Muslims themselves, will always, show a crescent moon and a star to depict this is Islam. Its significance is not that great. Meaning, if you don't have a moon and a star, it doesn't mean that Islam is not there. Islam is a religion that doesn't really looks upon any symbols or any kind of what they call it, representation. But it's actually more of just a rhetoric symbol. That people can just, oh, this is Islam, like how the camel and the desert is technically. Yeah. So I think that's a little bit on the star and the crescent moon with regards to Islam lah.
So maybe Fiza, maybe now you can share a bit more about Ramadan. So how does Ramadan? What's the significance of Ramadan, especially during this period, in terms of Islam, the religion? Yeah.
Okay, for Muslims, Ramadan is considered the most sacred month, if not one of the most sacred month. All right. So technically, it is a sacred month where Muslims actually practice self-discipline. They practice self-control. It's a form of sacrifice, because they will not be able to eat or drink, or enjoin in any acts that invalidate their fast, right from Fajr, which is dawn, and up until dusk, which is Maghrib. So each country differs in the timing. So like for Singapore, it's about 9.5 hours on average. Australia, it's a little bit faster, because the daytime is faster over there. In some parts of Europe, in the Middle East, it can even go beyond 12 hours. So technically, Muslims, they look at Ramadan as a month of spiritual purification, as a month of self-discipline, as a month of self-control, as a month of worship. But that doesn't mean that they only worship in the month of Ramadan. It is a special month where one of the most famous activities for Muslims are done in the period of Ramadan, which is the fasting. And we fast for 30 days, right, throughout the entire month of Ramadan, from the very first of Ramadan up till the last day of Ramadan. And it's a season for a Muslim as well to observe, their piety and their belief towards God, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they also leverage on that time to actually come together as a family, all right, to immerse themselves in this spiritual journey in inching closer towards God. So it's not just an individualistic activity. It's actually, more often than not, it's an entire community or communal activity or familial activity. It involves everyone. So, in the daytime, they fast, and then they will have their prayers at night. So technically, that is what Ramadan is all about. But if you ask me, from the perspective of Ramadan itself as a month, being why is it one of the most important month for the Muslims? Because it is in this month that God revealed the revelation of the Kitab, the book, which is known as the Holy Quran, on this particular month. It was revealed to Muslims. It was revealed to the Prophet in this month, technically. Yeah, the Ramadan is really important to Islam because of, not only because of its fasting activities or the prayers or the month of worship, but because of what actually happened in the beginning of Islam in the month of Ramadan. Yeah.
Cool. So maybe at this point, maybe Frank, maybe you can offer your perspective on, do you see any similarities between Islam and other religions or cultures based on your research that you've done as the author of those books that you've written?
Sure. Hi, Fabian, Fiza. Yeah, actually,
Hi,
I'm a free thinker, so I'm very interested to the cultural thing and religions. So based on my observation, I want to respond to what you mentioned just now, the crescent and star. Yes, it's actually a misconception. A lot of people think whenever they see crescent and star, they think, oh, this is a Muslim. Actually, essentially they are Muslim. I mean, as what you would say just now, no symbols in the beginning stage. And the moon actually is a very significant symbol. It's a very simple symbol. Actually, it's available across cultures as well. Yeah, if you notice that in a lot of oil paintings in Christianity, Virgin Mary, Madam Mary, they always portray as a figure standing on the crescent. Yeah, and then in Hinduism, Lord Shiva, normally he is wearing a crescent on the forehead as well. Yeah, even in Chinese community, moon carry a lot of significance as well. Chinese people prefer the full moon. I mean, that's what you say is a progress, but Chinese prefer the full moon because the round shape, it symbolizes family reunion. Yeah, so that's what Chinese believe. Yeah, so I think moon is really very significant in all the cultural communities. And as Pizza just not mentioned, that is our calendar. Actually, different religions have their different calendar as well. It's all lunar calendar. Yeah, so but I think they have different ways of arranging the extra days every year. So that's why I think Hari Raya Puasa is moving forward by 11 days every year, right? And I'm checking with Fiza.
Correct.
11 days moving forward. But a lot of people not noticing that. Yeah. So there's a different mechanism to arrange the extra days for each year. In I think 9 years time, or 2029 or 2030, we'll have a Gongxi Raya. Chinese New Year and the Hari Raya Puasa will meet in the same week.
Yes.
Yes,
we also had Deepavali and Raya before. It's called Deepa Raya.
Deepa Raya, yeah. But Deepavali and Chinese New Year will never meet. Yeah, because they're all different lunar months. And okay, I mentioned that you mentioned Ramadan. I think a lot of people, especially for Chinese community, a lot of people, they mistakenly believe that Hari Raya Puasa is a new year for Muslim community. Yeah, because actually for Chinese community, we celebrate Chinese New Year as the most significant festival in the year. And they believe, or because they do not know Ramadan actually is the 9th month in the lunar calendar, right? So you have a 12-month lunar month as well, and this is actually not the New Year. The New Year is not a public holiday in Singapore.
For Singapore, in the context of Singapore, it's not a holiday.
It's in August, right? Nowadays, I think in August.
It depends because it keeps moving.
Keep moving.
So for this year, it's in August. It's in August. Yes. The month is called Muharram, actually. The New Year is called Muharram. In Singapore, what's most unique is because while religion is religion, depending on each state and country, right, sometimes culture do take a front seat. So for the Malay Muslims in Singapore, the Malays technically, Ramadan, or they call it Bulan Puasa, the fasting month, is always associated with the month of celebration. And the only reason why people celebrate is because of, something which is really festive. All right. And technically in Islam, if you take a look at it, while the locals, or rather the people of the Nusantara region, meaning the Asians, they will look at Hari Raya as really a very big actually event, or puasa is a really big event. But technically in the times of the Prophet, Hari Raya Idul Fitri, or the month of Ramadan, and then Shawwal, which is what comes after Ramadan, Hari Raya itself, is not actually a huge celebratory festive season. What's bigger is the month of sacrifice, which is the Zulhijjah, the Hajj period, which comes technically about 1 month later. But for the locals, they actually celebrate 1 month of fasting and then 1 month of festive season, which is very unique and that's why you see a lot of people putting on new clothes with their black hat and their samping, and they go out for 1 month. Sometimes ask myself, are we not tired going out for one entire month? But it's unique lah. And I think the other religions as well, other races as well, they actually also celebrate quite lengthy, but it's not as long as us lah, 1 month. But in Islam, technically there's no such calling, or initiatives to actually celebrate for 1 whole month. It's only 1 day of celebration, and that's all. And it's only the first day. Yeah.
So that is more of a cultural thing.
It's more of a culture and
of the 1 month. Okay.
I think because the different races stay together, the traditions are intertwined and influence each other.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So I think that's the reason why we're using the 10th month we're celebrating, right? That's why Chinese people will always think, there's a Malay celebrating New Year. But actually it's not. So this is a very, very very big misconception.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe for Fiza, right? So I mean, in light of the current COVID-19 situation, maybe you can just share a bit about how your family has adapted for iftar in this period.
In the month of Ramadan, aside by individual worship, which I think every religion also focuses on that, but for Muslims, the month of Ramadan, aside by your spiritual obligations, it also brings about a heightened sense of communal obligations and familial obligations. This is the month where we feast together, right? And there are 2 important feasting periods for Muslims throughout the month of Ramadan. One is known as the sahur, which is the pre-dawn meal before fasting, which you might want to call it breakfast. It's eating right before the coming of the dawn period, about 4:30 a.m., before 5:30 a.m. technically. So people will wake up in the morning, which they're not used to, and they eat together as a family. And then right after the call of prayer, they will perform their prayers, and then they will not eat for the next 9.5 hours to 10 hours to 11 hours, depending on where they are. The next important feasting is called the iftar. The iftar is what we call the berbuka puasa, or the breakfast, which is different from the breakfast. The breakfast is how someone actually breaks their fast lah. So usually families will gather. It's also a little bit cultural in the sense where we will always respect the elderly to eat first. We will serve the elderly first, and then the young will serve the elderly. It goes beyond. It goes beyond just religion alone. It's very cultural, and I think this is also shared across all the cultures as well. That that it's always enjoyable. It's always meaningful to have your elderly to actually consume and have their meal first before you. So technically, while it might differ, right, from one family to another, but more often than not, it's always a family thing. It's a month to actually come together as a family. It's also a month to catch up with your friends. In the past, even before the coming of Ramadan, this year, it's a little bit different because it's a lot more quiet. It's a lot more concentrated to our very own families. So as a young couple, me and my wife, we're just living together in our own homes, in our own house. Our parents, they're living at their own house. What we usually do is to always make a schedule. For example, if in a week, maybe we enjoy the breaking of fast at each other's parents' house. So Saturday could be my parents' house. On Sunday will be my wife's parents' house. But this time round, it's a bit difficult. We can't do that. We need to abide by the stringent, strict, but effective circuit breaker rulings. So it's a little bit different because it's a lot more quiet. A lot more quiet in the sense that we observe the break of fast, just the both of us, me and my wife. And the prayers is also done just by me and my wife.
Okay.
Usually we will go to the mosque. Muslims and
Okay.
the mosque in the month of Ramadan, they are quite significant
Mm.
because they will actually, after breaking the fast at homes, if not at the mosque, they will then go to the mosque as a family and they will observe their prayers over there and then come
Okay.
back home together. And that's
Okay.
why sometimes you find that the mosques in Singapore or in the entire wide world in the month of Ramadan, they are jam-packed with people. Another difference as well, aside by the spiritual part, is the communal part. There's
Okay.
no bazaars this year.
Yes.
It's rather busy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. You know, usually the heartlands, like I'm staying in Woodlands, so there's always the Bazaar Raya Utara, which is at the Woodlands MRT
Oh,
over there.
yes,
So
yes.
it's really packed with food and people. It's a festive, you know, feeling. It's a feasting, you know, bazaar. You can find all those nice food. Like for example, we have the equivalent of the bakwa, which
Oh,
is the
yeah.
dendeng,
Yes,
which
yes,
is the
yes.
sweet meat, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is really significant, because for Muslims, or rather the locals, right? That is only consumed, is really popular only in the month of Ramadan.
Yes.
People don't look for it beyond the month of Ramadan. Like for example, my Chinese friends, if they don't consume it in the month of the Chinese New Year or whatever it is, Bee Cheng Hiang is always around the corner. Bee Cheng Hiang is readily available.
Yeah.
But for the Muslims, the Malays
Dendeng,
technically, or rather the Muslims, the locals, the dendeng, yes, it's only
Okay,
available
yes.
at the bazaar. So
Yes.
now it's rather bizarre because there's no bazaar. So for me, Ramadan is the same. It's a month of spiritual obligation. What's different is just the circumstances, which I think this will even pass, because I think it's not just us which were affected. I believe the Christian community as well, while
Yes.
they celebrated Easter a
Yes.
few weeks ago, they also didn't manage to actually go full blown in their celebrations,
Yes.
because all of us have to adhere by the circuit breaker rulings. Definitely, it's a change of experience, but it's a unique change nonetheless. It's a unique change. Yeah. In fact, it makes us much more appreciative of the time that we have in this world. It makes us more appreciative of the value of family, especially for
Yes.
me as well, if not for everyone else also. Because now we really value time, we really value the importance of kinship and relationship and our familial obligations. It's not easy now to carry out your obligations as a son, because if you are staying away from your parents,
Yes.
though we can still order food for them, Food Panda or Grab Food, or you can do the shopping for them, but there's no longer any form of gatherings. So technically, someone asked me before, if this circuit breaker thing is lifted, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I want to meet my parents. I want to meet them, and I just want to enjoy the time, the sacred time that I have with them, with whatever time they have left, technically. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Fiza and Frank, for your sharing and the very insightful discussion. So right now we will move on to discussing about sending greetings during this period. So actually, every festival in Singapore, it is quite common for people to send greetings to family and friends, either through cards, or through maybe e-cards nowadays. So right now I'm going to show everyone this very interesting artifact. So this is Hari Raya Aidilfitri card from the 1960s. All right.
All right. It's going to be unique.
Take a look. Yeah.
Don't get this nowadays.
So over here, we have Hari Raya Aidilfitri card from 1960s featuring famous Cathay Chris film actress Mariam Baharom. So Mariam was born in Singapore in 1935. She was a successful actress who starred in such films as Aloha, Aladdin, and Abu Hassan Pencuri. She's also the mother of Malay film actor Bud Latif and famous Malay singer Rahimah Rahim, who is still now very, very popular, and still performing in Singapore. So right now, so maybe Fiza, maybe you can share with us whether, in the past or even now, do you still receive or send Hari Raya greeting cards?
Hey, interesting. Because I don't really recognize who Mariam Baharom is.
Yeah, no problem.
And,
but Rahimah Rahim, right?
Of course, I do know. Yeah. Because that's more of I wouldn't say my age. I'm still young though. But more of our period lah. But I do watch the movies that you mentioned earlier lah. I think you are better at the movies or the history of Mariam Baharom than me, Fabian.
maybe.
Okay. Okay. Technically, with regards to sending greeting cards,
yeah.
If I can recall, the last greeting card I ever sent was from me to my wife when I was in Georgia. I was in Georgia for a work trip. I was 2 weeks in, and I actually saw a very unique postcard. I wrote on a postcard, and I sent it back to Singapore lah. It only arrived 1 month after I reached Singapore.
So by then you're back. By then you were back in Singapore.
I'm already back in Singapore. And it's really unique. But with regards to sending greeting cards, I don't think I have ever sent one before, but I do receive a lot.
Oh, okay.
In my mail, physical cards from, for example, from MUIS, from Majlis Ugama Islam Singapura, the religious body, to wish us as their counterparts, their partners, from other organizations. I do receive a few cards from my non-Muslim friends as well.
Oh, nice.
For me, for me, what's unique is, I even receive, I have to share this. I even received cards from ministers before.
Wow.
And it's quite heartwarming, yeah. But for me personally, what I always do is, because, if I were to be fair, if I were to send greetings to everyone that I know, I think there's going to be a lot of cards involved, a lot of stamps involved. So what I usually do is I do e-cards.
Yes.
I do send cards, but it's e-cards via WhatsApp.
Yep.
And I personally create it. So I will go on, Photoshop, and I will create my own card. Sometimes it's me and my wife, if it's for family. If it's me alone for my students or for my contacts, it's just my own message. But technically, I do send e-cards, but not physical cards lah. But it's quite unique in the sense that actually people do still send cards.
Oh.
But I think the trend is actually going down because, to save the earth, to prevent from paper printing or whatever not.
Yep.
So a lot of people are actually leveraging on e-cards. So if you ask me, do I ever receive it? I do receive it every single year. Not just cards. I receive e-cards as well. I also receive hampers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I tell you, it's unique because who doesn't like unboxing?
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So usually, what I will do is, sometimes it will be sent to my office. Sometimes it will be sent direct to my house. Right.
Okay.
So I'll compile all these letters. So on the morning of Raya, before I even go out, on the eve, before I even go out and meet my parents or my wife's parents, we will tear open these letters, these cards, and we start read one by one. And usually the what do you call it, the hampers, I'll just put it aside until when all my family congregate at my place, because I'm the youngest in the family.
Okay.
So it'll take some time to reach my house eventually. So after the third or fourth day. So when everyone comes, so I'll get the kids to open it up, to unbox it, and they start to share it with everyone lah. So in Islam, there's this thing called tahadu wa tahabu. It means give gifts. And it means to exchange love. So it's always advisable to exchange gifts lah. So we exchange gifts. It could be food, kuih raya. It could be some presents that the person need. It could be some, anything, appliances that perhaps that person is in need for. So it depends on the occasion and what you need lah technically. So it's really a festive of giving. Really a festival of giving, which is very, very, very unique. And you're always happy when you receive.
Yeah.
You're always happy when you receive things. It's unique. Yeah.
So this act of giving, is it only during the Raya period, or it's especially so during the Raya period, or throughout the year?
I believe as a Singaporean, we do like to give gifts. I mean, birthdays lah, anniversary, just name it. You haven't met your friend for a long time, catch up dinner, so you buy something, right?
Okay.
Sometimes you just have some kind of activity like, okay, buy each other $10 worth of stuff, and then they have a gift exchange. But for us, technically, we do receive gifts regardless of period and time. And during Raya, it's where this act of giving is heightened. And more often than not, it's in the form of food, and monetary. I believe this also goes the same with the other races as well. Especially, I'm quite close with some of my Chinese friends. I do know that aside by just oranges, they do bring really fat, lucrative ang paos, and sometimes gifts, for to exchange. And I think that's really beautiful. Because what more can a person, they don't really look forward to the gifts, but it's the act of giving out of sincerity that really warms the heart of people receiving it. So it's the same, I think, for Malays and Islam, for Muslims as well. But technically, in the religion itself, there's no specific order of things, meaning
Okay.
you are supposed to give this or give that. It's just the Prophet actually advising Muslims to tahadu wa tahabu, give
Okay.
gifts and spread love.
Okay.
And it's not just in the month of Ramadan. It's
Okay.
even beyond the month
Okay.
of Ramadan, or even beyond the month of Hari Raya lah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
very
think in
interesting.
general, you can just imagine that the giving, not giving to the friends and relatives, like giving to the people, needy people, the people in
Yes.
need. This
Yes.
is a way
Yeah.
of giving
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a form of charity as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It is only by giving that you will receive lah. Yeah. That
Yes.
is one thing that's been taught to us by our Prophet.
I think it's quite similar. I mean, I'm a Catholic, so I mean it's quite similar during, like, say, Lent as well as Christmas time. You know,
Yeah.
there's also this
Yep.
emphasis on giving back to people, giving back to society. You know, that's why it's always like in these two periods,
Yeah.
like there's a greater call for Catholics, you know, or Christians in general, you know, just to give to the less needy. Yeah, so like there's quite similarities lah between Islam as well and Christianity in this aspect. Well, this is the first time I'm hearing about this act of giving during Hari Raya.
I think it goes across the board, Fabian and
Yeah.
Frank. I think every single religion, whether it's a religious base, or it's a like Frank, a non-believer, or I would say a free thinker. You know, even that you are a believer because you believe in the free thinking of ideas and spirit technically. So all of us, you know, regardless of language, race, or religion, we all believe in the act of mercy. And one of the things that our Prophet taught us is those who do not share mercy will never receive any form of mercy. It is only that through the acts of merciful giving and merciful, you know, acts of love and friendship, do we actually receive more mercy than ever. It also contributes to the bigger understanding of how a country can be safe. And I strongly believe that the only reason why Singapore, being such a democratic country, being such a country that is so diverse, is still enjoying, you know, the peacefulness and tranquility, is because across all regions, we are really peaceful and we are merciful with each other.
I do send greeting cards to my
yes,
religious
going back
friends.
to greeting cards.
I mean, it's still giving things, right? Yes, but nowadays it's not. Yes, I agree with you. Not many physical cards sent out, and whenever you send out the physical cards, normally we pin down some very personalized message, and people will receive it. They really appreciate that. And if you send out digital cards, the digital cards will be customized, or you create your own, or I draw on my own cards or something. Let's say, for example, my Qing History Society, we send out the physical cards for our members every year for Chinese New Year, but it's a corporate cards. But we, all the ESCO members, we sign on it. We do our wish. Now our members will appreciate that. I think nowadays, people will appreciate those are personalized, personal touch.
So I think, Frank, right, I think you gave us some images, some cards that you designed. Maybe I can just show it to everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Yeah. So these are some cards.
Wow.
So these were designed by Frank himself. I mean, because he's an
beautiful.
author. He's an author and illustrator. So maybe, Frank, you want to share a bit more about the cards that you designed?
Oh, this one I just because I know the festival period is coming, so I just sketch something to send to all my friends. To wish them. The first one is a Tamil New Year. It's in April.
Wow, let's decorate. Wow.
Yes,
so
this is a potential
unique.
year. And
do you draw this? You draw this or use it on paper?
iPad.
Okay,
iPad. I just draw it.
Wow.
Yes.
You use your
Such
iPad,
beautiful
right?
illustrations.
Yes. iPad, right?
Yes, use my iPad. Then I can send to my friends and post on my social media platforms.
Yeah,
wish
really very nice.
Thank
you very much for watching this video. This is part 1 of our online discussion with Fiza and Frank about Ramadan and Hari Raya Puasa. We will be having a second video that will be out in June where we discuss about celebrating Hari Raya Puasa. Do follow us on our National Museum of Singapore Facebook page or on Instagram if you would like to be kept up to date about all of our upcoming programs. Thank you, and we will see you again.